Hey guys, this is Chris. I just want to welcome you to this episode of the Simply Youth Ministry Podcast. And I'd also like to take a moment and apologize for the audio issues that happen a little bit in this episode. But I hope you enjoyed anyway, and don't worry, there won't be any audio issues with episode 152. Enjoy the show.
To throw it in there, not all of our shows are going to be great.
And Katie Edwards.
That's what the teens are saying.
Write in. We'll answer your email.
sympodcast@gmail.com.
Hey everybody!
Woohoo!
Welcome to Simply Youth Ministry Podcast. This is a very different episode. It's episode 151, and it is Katie and Josh are in Africa. Matt McGill is in Germany.
Bed. That would be. Or at a restaurant.
I am here with some of my favorite female friends in the world. One, my wife, who is my very, very favorite, Cathy Fields. To my right and to your left on the screen, if you're watching, if it's audio, you're missing a fabulous outfit.
You are.
Megan Hutchinson. Megan and I worked at Saddleback together for about 10 years. I've said many times, one of the best youth workers I've ever worked with. She's written a bunch of books. She's an expert in hurting kids. And now she has a new gig that starts this Sunday as a youth pastor. And
Of a youth group with two kids in it right now.
You took 4 to camp.
4 to camp, but one of them is like on the fringe. Another one doesn't go to church.
So it's a very small youth group.
It's a very small youth group.
And you start on Sunday. And you are the volunteer youth worker, and you're very excited.
I'm very excited.
That's great.
And Amanda
Very
and I
excited.
would just like to say she's not an expert on actually hurting children.
Literally.
On
I don't hurt
kids
kids.
that are hurting.
And over here is Amanda McGuire. Amanda is the queen of the marriedtoayouthpastor.com blog.
That's right.
And Amanda, tell us a little bit about your blog. Like it's Married to a Youth Pastor. And so who do you write to? I mean, I know you're writing to mostly women.
Mostly women. I'd say 99% women.
Okay.
And it's just a place where if you are a youth pastor's wife, do I look at the camera?
You don't have to look at
Okay,
that.
good, because it's real awkward.
Josh Griffin's the only one that
Well, let me tell you. Fans of mine. It's a place where women come and
Yeah.
Anyway, we got some questions about marriage and family, and you two have kind of the married to a youth pastor spouse. Amanda, you've been on the youth staff before. You volunteer. You're kind of in a season now where you are or aren't. Not very much involved. Kathy's done all the different seasons. Now Kathy has a small group of 9th grade girls that meet at our house with my small group of 9th grade boys.
Yeah, that's great.
You are been full-time youth pastor. Now you're volunteer,
Right.
but you're married to the most incredible
Great
man
guy.
in the world who has supported your ministry. So we got a lot of family different dynamics. So it'll be fun. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to start with an email that's a little bit depressing, but I think what it does is it creates the seriousness of this issue, being married and in ministry. And I'm not going to say his name, even though he gave me permission to. He says, while you're meeting for the podcast, at that time I'll be in a courthouse signing papers for separation from my wife. 2 weeks ago, my wife informed me that she wanted a divorce. For reasons that are beyond my control, she doesn't want counseling, she doesn't want help, she's made up her mind. There's more in-depth reasons, which I'll freely share, just not at this time. She's made up her mind, she's done. She wants out, and there's nothing I can do. I've tried everything, I've suggested everything. This is literally in God's hands. And so, Kathy and I for several years have been talking, our genre has moved a little bit from just youth ministry programming ideas, small groups, to all of a sudden we see all the pain and the hurt, and we're going, wait, these people aren't going to be able to do programs in small groups if they don't have, a marriage or family, that type of thing. And so we've kind of been talking lately about what does that look like in ministry, to minister to people who are in ministry and are hurting. So don't want to start with a bummer, but this is serious stuff.
Wow. Oh, I feel sad for him.
Yeah.
Very
I
sad.
was very sad. I
sure.
actually wrote him back and I said I'm praying for you right now. He's going to the Simply Youth Ministry Conference next month, and so I'm looking forward to connecting with him. And and who knows? We don't know the issues,
Right.
and all that stuff, but we just do know marriage and ministry is difficult. Is that what you feel like you hear on your blog?
Constantly.
So like,
Probably every other post is something about family or time and boundaries and does my spouse think that ministry is more important than me, or how do I juggle that when I feel like, you know, it's like a mistress sometimes, because they have a hard time thinking they're saying no to God if they say no to their husband being out 100 nights a week or tons of
What
stuff
feels
like
like 100 nights a
and
week.
so they're
Yeah.
confused, and so they write in and
yeah. Well, let's actually take that idea, and you ladies chime in on this. This is from Drew Peterson. He says, how do you show your spouse that they are a higher priority than your ministry?
I would love to start, only because I feel like, Doug, I had a great model with you and Cathy, because serving alongside Doug for, 10 years, and then being in, I think, 3 or 4 different churches before that, I was able to see lots of different models of men pastoring, being youth pastors, who honestly, different models of people who were really into their family, people who were more into the youth ministry and lost their family and struggles. But what was so great about seeing you guys is your motto was Cathy and the kids first. I mean, again and again and again. And I feel blessed to have kind of been able to be part of that, because it taught me now, as a mom of a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, these kids are your first ministry. So now in my little my signature at the bottom of my emails, it says wife, mom, minister, and in that order. Now, not that that's ever easy, and not that that doesn't get blurred sometimes, and I don't struggle and pray and cry and have messy moments, but
So how do you, what else? Do you
We
show your
had
spouse their higher priority?
we had an aha, like I can just remember this, an aha moment in our marriage when I realized, when Jeff showed me that I'm more important, right after Molly was born, our second, I just couldn't get it together. I kept asking him to be home early, like demanding so much time with him, because I just was so frazzled having 2 kids, and he, it was overwhelming to me. So we had a discussion, real serious, of, I know that you're demanding this time from me. My job is not allowing it. So something has to give. Do I need to find a new job? So when he held me as the priority and said, I will quit this job if that's what you need from me, like that, the bells went off, and I thought, no. But it was an amazing statement that he made.
Thanks for thinking of that.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you
then
for
I kind of
sacrificing
gathered
something else for your
myself and
family.
thought, no, okay, he would do this for me. I got to pull it together for him. So, and of course it's always communication, always. But I needed to know I'm more important, and he would leave whatever. He would miss a camp if I asked him to. He would not do a weekend service if I asked him to. And with that comes a responsibility on my part of not asking those things.
Yeah.
But I think I needed to know that. And it helps me then support the things that he's doing in ministry, knowing that I come first.
So communicating it, because there may be some people listening and they go, that's great that worked for you guys, but if I said to my wife or my husband, hey, I'll quit for you, they'd be like, okay.
yeah.
I don't know.
Some
Home
of them may be
Depot's
better
hiring.
think about
And
it.
some of them might.
them
I don't know. I
Might
don't
need to, Not saying that all of
No,
you
no,
need
no,
to quit your
no.
jobs.
Right.
No,
No,
that's a
not
scary.
at all.
That's
Yeah.
that's another conversation.
Not at all.
But for me, it was something, because the question was, what do you do? I mean, you can talk all you want, but there are some things that you can do to show your spouse.
Okay, well-
I find that I'm more supportive if I know about it ahead of time.
That's a
If
good
he
principle right
comes
there.
home and just springs it on me, I'll be real pissed through the whole event.
Totally.
But if I know
We
about
don't
it,
say that.
Yeah, this
No,
is
we
a
don't
Christian
say-
podcast.
We don't say the
Sorry,
word event.
sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want a bleeper?
Yeah, we can say best. We just don't say event.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I recall, I think, at least I remember you saying this, that you and Cathy would meet quarterly. You'd schedule, roughly, but quarterly with your calendars, and then you come back to us and go, okay, here's this was going to work, this we need to alter a little bit.
Yeah. And when it's busy and crazy, we're talking about it every Sunday night or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Especially when it comes to a busy week. And you're so right. If I know what's going on, I'm much more apt to go, okay, but spring it on me. And like you're all of a sudden imposing from 2 to 50 high school students on my life or junior high students. And, you know, once you have kids and stuff, that doesn't work anymore.
No.
That doesn't work.
It impacts
the older
everybody.
the kids get, the more difficult the schedule becomes because, you know, when your kids are little, you know, there's not a lot of stuff going on. You know, we've got 3 teenagers and stuff is happening every single night. And so you have to be coordinated. I think, you know, to the youth worker is don't just assume that your spouse knows that he or she is the higher priority.
Yes.
Because we could be in a counseling situation, and I could say, as the counselor, you know, does your spouse feel like they're the priority? It's fun doing a thing with family, and Amanda's got 2 kids outside the door.
She's
They're just chaotic and screaming and going, "This is real life."
I think a Lego just hit the window.
Somebody that was actually working in our office had to leave because she was here to do some quiet writing and things like that, and she actually
They're rolling on the water bottle.
Yeah,
left.
they're playing with 5-gallon water bottles out there.
That's great.
Yeah.
They're so happy right now.
But in counseling, you
Yeah.
could say, let's just say it's a male youth worker, does your wife know that she's the higher priority? And the guy would go, absolutely. And then you could say to her, and she would say, oh, I don't feel that. You know, so don't assume that your spouse feels that they're the highest priority. You need to figure out ways to communicate that, you know, all the time. And there are some times you have to say no, and you may get a ding from that.
Right.
You know, not all youth workers can do what your husband, Amanda, has done,
True.
where they can take a weekend off or not go to that camp or something like that. You know, you've got to make that up in other times.
Yeah. You know what? One other practical thing that I just pictured that you and Megan are so good at is when you're with your spouse, as you were talking about the counseling situation, don't just assume, but you and Megan are both of you so good verbally at encouragement that I've seen you do it, even just the way you validate Adam, that he's in the room, but you're the one, Megan is the one that takes up the space in the room with your personality.
Well,
Yes. But you validate.
if the shoe fits,
right.
if the shoe fits, you can't deny it.
And Doug could be the same way. And so
Could be.
And Jeff the same way. And so, but the way that you validate Adam
Right.
and the way that you validate me, and again, Jeff with Amanda, that somehow all this is going on, but I can see in your eyes that Adam's the most important one in the room.
Right.
Oh, it makes me so touched.
It's very true.
And you do. You do a great job, and you do too. And I think that's huge. That and it trickles down to our kids too. That our kids know that they're the most important people in the room. Even if you're occupied with this person and you have to do this over here, but you know, both of you in a flash would walk by and you would kiss Adam or something.
Absolutely.
Just sweet.
Yeah.
Just
A
that
lot of times
shows
I
it.
would walk by and kiss Adam.
Because
Everybody wants
he's
to kiss
hot.
Adam.
He's just a cute
He's
dude,
hot,
you know.
He's nice and he's
nice.
great.
He is so
Well,
nice.
and he is so nice. I think that part of what I'm hearing is just respect, that you're just showing that spouse, whether they're the full-time youth worker, part-time volunteer, whatever, you're just constantly conveying this. I respect you. I respect your time. I mean, I remember when we were looking for a church this last year, you know, we went to 10 different churches and ran into some really, really good churches. But the one we fell in love with for many different reasons was because we looked at our kids and we said, this is a family choice. We have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. I think some people might not consider what their 4-year-old or their 7-year-old would think of a church, but we got counsel really early on is listen to your kids, because God uses your kids and the voice of your kids to direct you. And it was great. When our 7-year-old looked at us and said, can we make this our church home? That we would listen to that and respect them. And I think we're just modeling that respect in the family, which is kind of, I think, what I hear you saying is really, really important when it comes to schedule and youth ministry over, you know, the date night or vice versa and events. It's just, do I respect you enough to say, here's what I'm thinking. Does this work with our family life and our schedules? I keep looking over there. Do I do that? Is that, it feels a little
Every now
weird.
and then.
Just to say hi.
I don't do that.
You know,
But you're straight on the whole time.
you know, you're the center of the
I'm
camera.
not looking into the camera. I'm in the conversation. They're our friends. They're our team. We
Totally.
just invite them into the
So
conversation.
you have to give them eye contact every now and then.
Don't you think? Because, like, don't you guys feel like I'm more connected with you now when I look you that way?
Oh, man.
Oh, gosh. Can I just...
Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Toastmasters.
This is from
Wow.
Marianne Skis, St. Mary's Church, Alexandria, Virginia. She said, "This is my first
Ooh,
ever
nice place.
question, and I'm still way back in episode 70. This is episode 151.
Wow.
Which we are the first episode of the new year, huh?
Yes, we
Really?
Yes,
This
you
is
didn't.
amazing.
You didn't say that.
We-
Yeah, this is the first
well,
episode.
next time the
of
regular
2011.
troop is gone,
Oh,
we'll
wow.
talk about that. But we did episode 150 like December. I don't know what it was. December 15th, 16th,
Yeah.
something like that. Well, then Christmas takes off. New Year comes back. My mom goes into critical
gosh,
condition,
crazy.
and so for 4 weeks, I'm
Yeah, you're
with
out.
my mom
Out.
and basically ushering her into eternity. And then right when she dies, Josh and Katie and McGill all go out of the country. So this is our first time back.
Wow. Happy New Year.
Be a new
Happy
team.
New Year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be a new team.
You know what could be?
Yeah.
Let's just plant that seed. The other one, they're out. It's us now.
Yeah.
It's like I could just hide behind a speaker and it could be like Charlie's Angels.
Doug and the ladies.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
I was going to say I'm talking your language.
You
aren't I?
really are. Yeah. Look at my roller skates on.
Marianne says I'm a full-time youth minister and I'm getting married in 3 months. What are some good ways to lay a good foundation so that both work well together from the start?
What a great question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say? You have one thing. What do you do to lay a good foundation?
You go first.
Well, I think that, marriage, just the whole thing is going to be new and awesome and, awful and awesome and fun and great and transitional. I think as it relates to youth ministry, that it would just some conversations and discussions about boundaries now, even though it's just the two of you, she could fill up every spare moment because she's not single, but with just her partner as her husband. There's a lot of free time. I mean, we're now all coming from parenting roles where, okay, we'll make the changes when we have kids. It's really good to start now on some
good.
boundaries with time and just for the two of you.
Because as the full-time youth pastor where she's at, her kids in her youth group are so used to her.
Being single, doing single.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing it as a single woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, Riley, let me take a pause just for a second. Are they too loud out there? Do we need to move them outside? Are you okay? Okay, good.
Those obnoxious kids.
Yeah. Those McGuires.
Right. You do
So
something
set
about
some
it.
boundaries because don't wait until you have kids.
Yeah, set some boundaries now. Have some
Having the
conversations.
non-negotiable day off.
Yeah,
time
establish a
together.
day off
Yes.
now.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
I remember a day off being a big deal because when it's just the two of you, you feel like, well, we could do it another day, or it could be any night, or we could have a date night, and then time just goes and you fill up your time if you don't put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
And feeling 2 months not seeing Jeff, going, am I married or am I still single? Because all I do is hang out with my girlfriends. I remember, yeah.
And even model that now while they're 3 months before the wedding to say to their kids, this is our sacred day, and to start. Maybe she's done that already. Maybe they have, but to implement that now would be great. They're not sideswiped from the wedding on,
Yeah.
Which
Which is tough in this situation because she and her husband probably both have full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And as we went through when we both had full-time jobs, it's, Monday through Friday, you work Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start to kind of get creative, and I don't know how their job situation works, but you kind of have to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we're in romper room right now. Yeah. Can anybody else? Riley, we're fine with that. You're okay. Because our crowd, you just got to imagine, how old are the kids that are outside there, Amanda?
2 and 4.
Two and four. And they are.
it's a party out there.
It is a party.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Because really, that is the
That's what
reality.
we
of
It's
modeled.
perfect.
life.
That's
We
why
had to
Megan's
get
doing
creative
it.
so that I
Yes.
could be here.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
So Jeff had to take some time off.
Right.
And take the kids.
They only have one
And
car
we
right
only
now.
have one car.
Oh,
Yeah.
welcome
Which is
to
funny
youth
'cause
ministry.
We have an extra car with Cody being in Africa.
Oh, right.
The problem is, Jeff, many years ago, like 7 years ago, crashed one of our cars.
Oh,
Just like a fender bender, not a huge crash.
Yeah.
okay.
But on our insurance, every time we renew our insurance, it says uninsurable Jeff McGuire.
You are kidding.
His
It
name
really
is
says
on our
that?
insurance papers.
So I
And it
said-
hasn't even been cleared
I
after all
said,
these
we can lend them the car. Amanda just has to drive it, which is
No Jeff McGuire.
Great.
That is funny.
Anything else on foundation, or we want to move on to another question?
I would just say maybe counseling. Maybe get a third party in there to help them facilitate what that could look like as they're moving into year one of marriage.
Yeah, so premarital counseling or
Yes,
after?
both.
No, both.
Oh, yeah.
Adam and I did both. It
was-
changed
yeah,
our,
it was
it
great.
set a foundation. You did too?
Yeah, we did both.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Yeah. Well, can we just hit on one thing that Megan and Adam, I don't know if you still do it, but I remember in the past, you guys go for a checkup and just go to counseling. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go quarterly. And
Yes.
have them ask us some good questions, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if I was married to Megan, I would be doing that too.
Megan.
Wow.
You're the best.
You know
No,
what?
she is the best.
You know what, Doug? Doug,
Fun.
hurt people hurt people.
You know what? Here it is.
You should know that.
In my marriage,
Here he goes.
I am you,
I totally know you're like my male figure.
and
And
And I'm sweet like Adam.
you're Adam.
You are.
I
You
know.
are.
We've known that for 10 years.
no,
Yeah.
that's why we like each other.
Right.
So much.
Absolutely.
This is a question from Daryl Brame, and he is from Parkview Christian Church. And he gives a little bit of a setup. It's not a little bit, it's a long setup to his question about he's been, when his kid was born, the kid was in the hospital a lot, so there was a season of about 8 to 10 weeks where he was kind of out of the game, to be honest, in the youth ministry world. He was not as focused, he wasn't putting time into his ministry. The ministry, he believes, has suffered, and other people have said, you know, you're kind of not doing your job. We want to see timesheets now
Wow.
of his job, and he's married to a I think there's just a lot of stuff here. I forget. They might be blurring together. No, he's married to a nurse who works 12-hour shifts 3 days a week. Which, when I first thought that, I thought, oh, awesome. So you have money.
She's the breadwinner.
Well, that's right.
Right.
But he says, and he has 2 kids. But watching my dad in ministry, I made a promise to myself that I will not sacrifice my family for ministry.
Great.
Which, looking back, my dad wishes he would have given more time to family. So he
Right.
says, how do you balance your time between family and ministry while meeting that 40-hour requirement during the week? At this point, I have to turn in hours every week to show what I'm doing, even though you have to watch your 4-month-old from time to time because you can't find anyone to watch him. And then he says, a side question, do you consider youth group time, Sunday morning and Sunday night during church and youth group, to be part of those 40 hours?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody does, but his senior pastor and some
wow.
senior
Oh,
pastors.
that's
so
tough.
let me start on this one, and then you ladies fill in where it all falls apart. I think for all youth workers, it is a good idea to keep track of your time.
Yeah,
Because we are in a job where we have the freedom with our schedule, we have a lot of relational elements to our time, and Cathy and I decided many, many years ago when we were around some pastors who were either having affairs or accused of affairs, or people were like wondering what was going on, we just made a decision. I'm going to write down everything. So I write down people that I talk to, phone calls I make. I mean,
Right.
I used to do it when we back in the days of just paper calendars. I would just write it down as it happens. You know, now a couple times during the day when I'm at my computer, I just type in my day timer, what I've done, who I've talked to, that type of thing. So that I wanted to have the integrity as a youth worker that, hey, you may not see me, but I'm working. And if you ever want to question me, here you go. So I've never been concerned about the hour thing. As a matter of fact, in Purpose-Driven Youth Ministry, there's a chapter on time and time planning and time management and calendaring, how we do that. So I think, my feeling is that when a church pays you for 40 hours, whether it's right or wrong, they're expecting more. They're expecting, a 50-hour work week because everybody
Yes.
in the church works, they work at Home Depot or wherever for 40 hours. Then they volunteer their time. So I understand, I really do, why, pastors would want to show a stronger work ethic, that type of thing. So but when I'm at church doing youth ministry on Sunday morning, speaking or Sunday school, whatever it is, I'm not there for myself. To me, that's work hours.
Yeah.
And Wednesday night, Bible study, that's work hours. Now, if you're doing those and you're just barely creeping up to 40, you might have a discussion to say, what are some other things that I can do, and what needs to be done. You need to. My first thought was when his kid went into crisis mode, and the youth group began to dip, my first question was, where were your leaders?
Right.
So one of the things you might be doing as you look at your time, if I'm this guy, is I'm going, if I come to the end of a week, and he said there's some weeks I just don't work 40 hours, I can't think of things to do. That's when you're spending time with leaders, you're developing leaders. But I would say to all youth workers, gosh, keep track of your time, just for accountability and integrity. And, if you're ever accused of something or whatever it might be, it's like, hey, take a look at my calendar. You can see.
Definitely. And I think you've been great at that and set from the time we met. I mean, we used to have bosses. We worked at the same church for a little bit. That required timesheets, that required, okay, turn in your work hours and what you did during the last week. And so it got us into a great habit. And then as you carried it on, I feel like it contributed to your respect in the workplace. Like people knew you were going to get at least 40 hours out of Doug, and they would be significant work hours. There was no question, is he really trying to get in 30 hours, even on the days. I mean, I think you set up good enough habits that when you did take off to go coach the baseball game or the soccer or whatever, people didn't question.
There was no
that
question
you
asked.
would put in enough hours at work.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say to Daryl too that I love that he's bringing this up. There's a piece of me that goes, I wonder if the pendulum has swung a little bit, Daryl, from Dad to you. I don't know if, from what I understand from his email, Dad worked too much and made a promise not to, and maybe this pendulum has swung so much the other way, where he's like, I'm so pro family that I don't necessarily know I've gone too far on the other end where it's just family, and so, which is easy to do. The pendulum swings in all of our lives for different reasons. But I wonder if Daryl specifically would be more proactive with his boss, and maybe once a week set up a meeting with him, whatever, twice a month, and say, these are what I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking, would you add anything to this task list? Here's are some of the goals that I have. So he's proactive with the senior pastor. Instead of the senior pastor kind of that feeling of, I'm constantly going after Daryl, he's not working enough, and here's the timesheet. So all of a sudden he comes to with a task list. I know I meet with our pastor, his name's Ryan, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. and I bring a task list, and he cracks up because he's like the relational king, and he's just like, Megan, just love people like you do. It's great. I don't need your task list. But he also knows I'm on it, and I got a goal, and here's where I'm headed, and he loves that I bring these things to him just so he feels like I'm respecting you. And are we on the same page, or anything I need to change? So
You're taking the initiative.
You're taking the initiative, and
Totally.
bosses love that. Senior pastors love that. They feel included, and maybe even ask him, "Hey, do you want to come to my youth ministry? And is there any part you want to play in this?"
Right.
Inviting them into, their world.
Yeah. Well, what I liked about reading this is he wasn't making excuses, and he was taking responsibility for things that have dipped, and he says, I'm not clueless. I haven't focused, and I understand you haven't focused. The last 4 weeks of my life,
family.
with my mom dying, I didn't focus. I'm hundreds of emails behind, and life is crazy now to try to kind of catch up. But I dropped out of everything. So it makes sense. There are seasons when crisis hits that, but now it's time to figure the whole thing out and organize your hours and think through how you're going to spend your time. And there are some weeks where you're working 60 hours because you throw a camp in there or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's crazy time as well. Hey, a very interesting question that I'm excited about exploring. This is from Lars Rude, and Lars is a youth pastor at Highland Park Presbyterian Church in Dallas, Texas. And he said, how can youth ministries best help parents' marriages? And the other night, or a couple weeks ago, when I spoke I spoke at a marriage retreat.
Yes.
And I said, my first words out, I said, raise your hand if you have kids. And most everybody, that are going to marriage retreats typically have kids. And I said, the best way to love your kids is to love one another. And I've been thinking a lot about what can we do in youth ministry to help the marriages. Because, it's been 10 years ago, there's a shift to not just youth ministry, youth and family ministry. And I think this is even a little deeper than just the family dynamics. It's really going after the marriage. 'Cause
Totally.
when a marriage is healthy, there's more stability in a family. Kids are more secure. Lars actually happens, this is not transferable, but he happens to have somebody on his leadership team who is an MFCC, marriage family counselor. And they've been hosting some youth ministry sponsored marriage events.
Wow.
And I think that's just a great idea. I don't know if there are
really
other models about that, but kind of thinking about your new youth ministry, Megan, and where Amanda, where you and Jeff work, marriage is a big value there, but a lot of times as youth workers, we don't even think about
Right.
the marriages of the kids that are entrusted to us. We complain about
We
how many
we
of them
complain
come,
and judge them.
complain about how many come from divorced families, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't have an answer. I think it's something to think about. I haven't seen youth ministry model teenage marriage. I haven't seen it modeled from the youth ministry perspective. I think it's a great question to be asking because, but I mean, I think even the infants, parents need to be thinking about their marriage
not
before.
just youth ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
and,
it's a great
Jim
question,
Burns
and
has
I don't
been
know.
doing that
Yes.
seminar, creating an intimate marriage, and a lot of youth workers are bringing Jim or somebody on that team to their church, almost kind of as a gift to the parents to say, I know there are other churches that are doing youth ministry sponsored marriage events, but it's interesting. But
Yeah.
let's flip that question just to our responsibility in our marriages as youth workers. So, when you stand in front of your 2 to 4 kids that you have
Right.
in your youth group on
Right.
Sunday, which it's not going to stay that way.
Yeah.
And you and Jeff, Cathy and I, for some people, the only thing they remember about being in our youth group is our marriage. Or the stories we told about our kids or whatever it is. I mean, we have a high responsibility and I think a high calling in our youth ministry to present, to be working on our marriages so that we can model to kids
Big
that are
time.
entrusted to our care,
Yeah.
what marriage can look like.
Well, and everybody listening knows that it's leadership is top down. So if you are loving your spouse, for those who are married, people just they gravitate towards that. They want that. They're hungry for it. People are hungry for healthy relationship models. So, and this is really a great point because I've been saying this for about 10 years to you and Cathy, and I really think this is the appropriate time to say it.
Okay.
That we've been talking about you guys writing a marriage book and a parenting book. No kidding, you guys. I have asked Doug to do this for 10 years. Can you please write a parenting book and a marriage model book? Because when kids turn out without a ton of rebellion, and they love Jesus, and they want to go to Africa for 7 years because they feel like God's heard them.
7 months.
7 months. Did I
Yeah.
say years?
Yeah,
Yes.
you did.
Wow.
Are you trying to
wow.
break something to us?
No,
Talk to Cody?
no private conversations with Cody here. You want to know what'd you do? What'd you do? And so I just think this is part of God's will that we're having this conversation right now for you to start writing that book. I mean, podcast is great, but we all know the written word gets spread faster. So start writing.
I started a blog.
Really?
Yeah.
Did start a blog.
Are you in on that blog too? Because your voice needs to be heard.
No, that's the reason I haven't written the parenting book.
Because of Cathy?
It needs to become.
I pulled it back.
Yeah, right.
You are a big
Wow, yeah,
Like a big old, what's the
Weight
ball
anchor.
and chain?
yeah, right. That's
No, gosh.
boy.
Here's the problem that
Stifled your
Kathy and I
life.
have had on our date day the other day. We had a conversation about this at Red Robin.
Yep.
Kathy doesn't have this desire to be a speaker or a writer.
Right.
And one of the reasons that we've had a good home and our kids are great and they haven't ran away from the church is because of Kathy.
Right.
So
You have always said that.
yeah, and it's true. It is.
Single vision for me, which is my personality, not
But
everybody.
It's been like child development major in college.
Yeah.
After college, it was got a job 9 to 5, but
to support us.
that's exactly true. But it was like when it was time to have kids, this is my job for the next 20x years. I'm going to have a ministry, and Kathy's been very involved in youth
Yeah.
ministry, and some seasons it has not as involved. But that's been her job. That's been her single focus. So even like on speaking gigs that I get, where I get 2 flights, and I'll say Cassie. She goes, I don't want to leave Cassie. You know, we
Yeah.
got 2 kids in college now. I don't want to leave Cassie. I'm like, she's 16. for a night,
Right.
where it creates some tension with us, where I'd like her to go, but that's,
Yeah. It's still your season.
And so I think,
Yep.
Megan, your prayer might be answered in a couple years.
Okay.
When our sophomore daughter graduates, and there are a little more freedom.
Unless we die.
Unless the McGuires
Then I'm with you
die.
again.
Then you have
If
your
Amanda
kids.
die, then we've got 3 kids. And that would be great with us. That would be great with us.
I love that. Did we?
So do
Is
you
there a
want to
question?
comment on
I
that?
don't
Do you
even
want
know
to
what
do you want
the-
to go public and say, okay, I will do that?
Oh, Kath, yeah, he's asking you right now.
Thinking
That's a verbal
of-
contract. Don't do
heck
it.
no.
Don't do it.
Heck no.
Except heck was not what was playing in my head. No, I'm not committing to
Andy
anything.
Brazelton has been trying to get her to write a book for a long time.
And Amanda has tried to help me.
Yeah,
I
you'd
have
be
given her
great
chapters
too,
and she's
Amanda.
tried to help me. She
I've
likes
been trying to
write.
get my own like pamphlet done, and I can't do that.
She has 3 young kids, and she at least likes to write. I don't even like to write. So a pamphlet.
A pamphlet's funny.
Yeah. So
All right, here's the deal. We got to close this out. So if you were, let's say a youth worker, male or female, is getting their spouse to listen to this. Okay? You're giving one word of advice, one coaching. I'll give you time to think about it, and I'll ask you a softball question. Valentine's Day is coming up, and probably by the time this hits iTunes, it'll be after Valentine's Day. Would that be right, Riley? Yeah. So this is
go
just
St.
for our-
Patrick's
really,
Day.
It's for our live audience or for next year. A lot of people say, "Oh, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day." Okay, just you got youth group that night or whatever. I kind of feel like whether you decide to celebrate it or not, or whether you say you're not buying gifts for Christmas or whatever it is, you still, as the spouse, you come through with something.
Totally.
Yeah.
Whether it's a
Totally.
handwritten card or just something that says, "I know we don't celebrate it, but."
Yes.
I thought of you. That's kind of all I think we each want to know. That even in the questions of how do I do it, we want to think we've been thought of. And especially on a day like Valentine's Day, yeah. Hallmark makes a lot of money and all the commercial stuff, but it's never wrong to tell somebody, I was thinking about you and you're super special.
good.
Yeah. We, right now in our life, do not celebrate Valentine's Day. We don't have the money. We have $7 in our checking account until the 15th, which is after Valentine's Day. So we can't.
Right.
So,
So
but
if you did die, the kids wouldn't come with any money.
you get nothing. You probably inherit a little
You might.
a minivan.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Man.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, but just the affirmation. I think an affirmation specific. I know for me, like I want Jeff to say, I know that you sweep the Cheerios up off the floor 25 times every day, and I thank you for that. I know that you keep our kids alive, and I come home to 3 living, breathing children. But I want a specific affirmation because we can't afford gifts, and I'm not going to buy him anything. And we do say, "Oh, it's okay. It's not a big deal, and I know that you love me, and it's fine." But
But you still want
Yeah.
something.
I still want an affirmation. I still
There's
want
a piece
an
of construction
acknowledgement.
paper somewhere in the house that
Yes.
he could
Yes.
make a
Cheerio, a
Cheerio
Cheerio, happy
heart
face.
out of.
Yes.
Thanks
Yes.
for sweeping these up into the form of a heart. That excludes.
Perfect. And you would frame that and
Yeah.
keep it forever.
Oh my gosh! Or
The funny thing
massage.
is-
massage is so free from Jeff to you.
Yes.
How about that? Or
Ooh,
making
coupon
you a bubble,
books.
That doesn't end in
making you a
sex.
bubble bath.
Yeah, a massage that
Yes.
doesn't end in sex.
Really?
Look at all the
You just
ladies.
said that?
Did you, wow,
Well,
Doug.
Verbal contract.
Jeff.
Verbal contract.
Verbal contract. We all heard it. It went live too.
I was
You're off the hook, Kath.
Jeffson coaching.
Well, I even think of Adam this morning before he went to work. He was so sweet. He said, "Hey, honey, Valentine's Day is coming off. Do you want me to? I'm happy to take a vacation day to hang with you. What day works best for you next week?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" He's just, I mean, seriously, I was just so touched that he'd even
Yeah.
say that. And I was like, "Well, maybe a few hours you could take off or something." But just that he would think that.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. It's the
Yep.
thought.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good takeaway from this. All right. Any wrap up? Anything you want to say? Are we done?
Love youth workers. Stay in it. Stay for the long haul. It's worth it.
Married to a youthpastor.com.
Yep.
See Amanda there every once in a while. Commenting all
That's
the time,
cool,
but
Amanda.
blogging a few times a week. Twice a week?
Yeah.
Once a week?
I try.
Whenever you can.
I try.
After the Cheerios get swept up.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
try.
After today, Kathy's stuff will appear more on my blog, DougFields.com,
Okay, DougFields.com.
based on what Megan just said, and buy Megan's books.
Yeah, absolutely. All two of them.
Ladies, great job. Thank you for being a part of episode 151, the Family Valentines.
Our pleasure.
Family Valentine's show.
See? Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
Okay, let's go eat.
Yeah, let's please.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.